The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
In regards to touring, I mean, you mentioned that, the biggest tour that you guys did was with the Hoods, and that extended into Europe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that, because not everybody gets the, the opportunity to travel with an act like that and see all the behind the scenes stuff and the backstage stuff. I mean, how was that experience for you guys?
The Europe part? Well, yeah, that was potentially a time of our lives. Like really, when I think back of everything, like that's one of the times of our life. Like it doesn't actually get that much better. Like, yeah, and we're super tight with those boys as well. Like they're like brothers. So I know I went to Suf's wedding. Debree's wedding recently. Suf was already married, so I missed that one. But I heard that was a big one. Debree's one was enough for me. But yeah, we got super close with them touring around Australia, and then I think we had like a little break, like maybe a couple of weeks, and then we're over to Europe, and just like remember the first day we were in Munich, it was like 44 degrees or something, like super crazy heat wave there. We just got off the plane, this super hot spot. We get to the hotel, and then we're like, oh, that's right, we're not in Australia anymore. We're losing money being here. We're in a hostel. We open up the door. It's like, 6 bunks for all of us. And, there's no aircon in there. It's like 50 degrees in there. It was kind of like taking a little step back in time in terms of like, yeah, the kind of little privileges you get over here of having like your own hotel room or something like that. And then, yeah, we went out. And then it was kind of like the first night, I think we went out, we met those guys at this beer gardens, and then we started having a few drinks. Then all of a sudden we're at some crazy club, naked people dancing, whatever you want to call them. Then we're like at some hip hop bar where like they've known someone, and the guys like told them to come in. There's no one in the bar, and we're making our own drinks behind the bar. And then all of a sudden it's like 8 a.m. and then we're doing a show the next day, and then we're out again all night. And yeah, like we had a tour manager for that trip, luckily, because we were all in a little van. I think he drove. I was about to say we, but he did. We drove the whole thing. So they were getting flights, but we're driving. So it was kind of like, all right, show's done in Munich. All right, we're up at 8 to drive 9 hours to the next spot or whatever.
Damn.
So it was heavy, but there was just such good vibe. Like none of that seemed to really matter. Like,
so you guys
spirits were high.
drove, but the Hoods, obviously, they get to fly around and stuff
yeah,
like
I
that.
think they drove some of it. Like some of it made more sense driving, but the ones that didn't make sense to drive, they flew. Yeah, for sure.
And so, what year was this
Would be,
tour? It was like a couple
was it
years
Cosby
ago.
Sweater tour.
So that'd be like a couple years ago.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago.
And then, so how did you actually find, the shows in themselves in Europe, as well as compared to, the ones here in Australia? Because obviously, when Hoods do a show in Australia,
It's crazy.
shit's selling out.
Yeah. They did ASO Arena last year or the year before, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
And so obviously, I can imagine that shit's crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, it was similar vibe in Germany and the UK for them for sure. Like our first show in Munich, I think there was 1,400 people there. Super good vibe.
wow.
The crowds were like, yeah, similar vibe. They were hyped.
And then how is it for, you guys, Thundamentals, having to open up for an act of that caliber on the other side of the world where, people are obviously familiar with the Hoods, but maybe not necessarily familiar with Thundamentals music? Is that, a lot of pressure?
Yeah, I think the Hood's just being so cool. And like, man, it's hard to fault those guys. I'd love to fucking rip those dudes one, man, because they're just killing it on all fronts forever, but they're killing it because holistically, those dudes have got it unlocked. They got families. They're like down to earth dudes. They give everyone time. The music's dope. Like, so they were so supportive of us. I never felt this real pressure. I knew even if everything went south, they were still going to have our backs. If we fuck up the whole show, I knew they weren't going to, be like, fucking, what do we got? Like, they were always super supportive. So from that side, it was super cool. And then the crowds in Europe are super, super supportive for the opening acts.
Yeah, wow.
They're there early. They're like super engaged, more so than Australia, I think.
So you didn't have to play to empty venues or anything?
Nah, we did
Like
a few of our own shows after the Hood shows, and we played a few. We did a few crazy ones. We did some real crazy. That whole trip was just a blur of partying and like good times and laughing and running for trains and just yeah. So we did one in a place called Metz. We were meant to do one in Marseille after the Metz one. Marseille was going to be the last show. Then we realized, and me, Jesse, Poncho, we're staying back for like 3 weeks after for a little holiday, get a little French Riviera on, go to Barcelona, whatever. And yeah, so we did the show in Metz, and we realized we're going to have to drive like 16 hours to Marseille. We're going to get there just as the show was starting, hopefully set up, do the show. Then they were going to have to leave after the show to get back to Frankfurt in Germany to get the plane back to Australia, and we're just going to stay there in Marseille. So then we realized that just wasn't possible. And like, I think that whole gig, whatever it was just like some unpaid sort of like, okay, whatever, like come do your thing at 4 PM or whatever. And we're just like, yeah, we'll do it. So we canceled that gig, but me, Poncho and Jesse still had to leave Metz and get down to Marseille because we booked accommodation to stay there. So we went out in Metz. We're like, ain't nothing doing in Metz. Ain't nothing to do here. We're not going to go out, so it's all good. So we do this little cafe gig to 20 people or whatever. It was super cool. But then we go out and we stay out all night, me, Jesse, Poncho. And then we meet some people on the way home. We go back to their apartment for a minute, blaze up, continue on our way, lost in this, medieval city. And then we get upstairs and I'm like, yo, we got half an hour to sleep and pack our bags. And then the taxi's going to be downstairs. And then we got to go. Like this whole thing, I could tell you the whole story. It goes on. It doesn't stop for another 2 weeks. But yeah, I get downstairs, me and Poncho are there, like wavy. And then I'm like, yo, where's Jess? And the taxi's there, French dude screaming at me. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to go look for Jesse. I don't know what room he's in. I don't know. Like, he doesn't have a phone because we're over in Europe. So, and there was this big spiral staircase that went up, and all the rooms like kind of like incrementally up this staircase. I was like, all right, bang, door 1, 5 a.m. None of them were locked. Not one was locked. So I had this torch. So I'm like opening these doors, like looking in for Jesse, closing the door. Of course, he's right up the top. I finally find him right up the top where I'm like boot camp style, get him downstairs. He like didn't. He's like, yo, just give me 2 minutes. I'm like, get up now. Like, I'm like, we got 10 minutes to the train. We get there. We get on the train, and then we get into our seats, and we're all still faded, and we find our seats. I'm like, oh, we're here. And we're like, oh, this is all right. The seats kind of go back. Oh, there's plugs there for our phones, and we're like, bang, passed out like immediately. And then I reckon it must have been 10 minutes later, we get a little tap on the shoulder, and they're like, no, this is your seat if you were in first class. You're at the back. You're in economy class. So then we had to get all our bags, and we go back there, and there's like, it was like a movie, like the difference, because we get back there and we're in these tiny little seats. There's people everywhere. There was a dude sleeping where my seat was already. There was like a little dog on there. It was crazy. But we made it.
And I guess in terms of, touring moments, do you have some, obviously the Hoods, touring with the Hoods in Europe.
Yeah.
Do you have any other, specific moments, whether they're funny or just memorable for whatever reasons that you can remember off the top of the head?
I think one that's not really funny, it's kind of like a bad one for me, but was when So We Can Remember came out. It got a bit crazy then because we went from kind of like unknown doing small rooms to all of a sudden, I think we did 3 corners in Melbourne, just all of a sudden, like, I don't know, we don't know how it happened. It just happened. And then Triple J got involved, and they were like, we'll do Live at the Wireless for the 3rd one. So it's all good. We're doing Groove in the Moo as well as our own national tour at that time as well. So it was real crazy. Like, that was the first kind of peak of doing good shows. And for the Live at the Wireless show, it's like halfway through the set, my Serato just started disappearing. Like, I still haven't seen anything. I can't recreate it. But I looked over to Poncho and I was like, yo, something's about to happen. Just get ready to play all the chords for this song, and I was like trying to load up a beat on the MP3 because I was like, at least I'm gonna have the MP3, he's gonna have that, and my screen was disappearing. Like it was it was like some Matrix shit, and little bits of my screen were disappearing, and then the screen was black, and I was like, yo, we're still going, but I don't know what I'll do when we get to the next song. Makes it to the end of the next song, I reboot, we get back up, start the next song, and then it goes down again, and then it's just like my computer was fried, it was gone. But then I just happened to remember that I put all the files on my iPhone. So I was like, yo, just talk, give me 5 minutes. I'm gonna find an aux cable. We're live at the wireless. Just keep it going. Like, just don't act like anything's wrong, but shit's going down right now. I'll try and keep the boys calm, and I'll be like, yo, laptop's out, we're done. So then, yeah, I'd like run over to the side of the stage. I'm like, we need an aux cord. I get the aux cord, and I'm like, yo, you guys ready? And then like looking down where the laptop's meant to be, and I'm like, no, dude, it's so good. And I'm like, bang, play it on my phone. I'm like, come on. It just like loads up, and we played the last like 3 songs off the iPhone.
Wow, and the quality was chill?
Well, there were WAV files.
Quality files.
Yeah,
so it doesn't
the
matter.
WAV files. It was only, out of my jack or whatever, but it's better than no show.
That's a rule for DJs, man. Keep a phone and an AUX cable and your files.
Well, now that
go.
phone, I keep that iPhone in my DJ bag now. Yeah. This is my life backup.
The lesson. 927. Oh, yeah.